We're gonna try this again outside for Mother Nature vibes. This is literally my backyard right now. I feel so incredibly blessed. And I called this in. That's my backyard. I just tried to go live 2 minutes ago, but not gonna lie, I kind of freaked out and stopped and deleted the video. Hi, Katie. So I'm giving this a new try with some fresh energy, and we're gonna go for it. So I feel like this topic is so rich and so fruitful and honestly like really close to my own heart. So I feel the bigness of this live, and I'm not even really sure what that means. It doesn't mean it has to go any certain way. I just think that these topics and calling in these topics and speaking to these topics is quite an adventure. So my intention for this live is around sacred unions. And, you know, a lot of people talk about this. It's kind of a buzzword that gets thrown around. Sacred unions, twin flames, partnerships, you know, these like divine unions. And something I am just making more and more, sometimes even reluctant peace with these days is that actually the realm of relationships is something that has been such a big learning journey for me over the course of the last 8 years of my life. I was in a really in-depth sacred union, you could say, for 5 years and learned so much. And then in the process of actually uncoupling and being single again and finding new levels of my own womanhood and then exploring so much within this realm. And I've also seen that there are a lot of things flying around social media and around a lot of teachings around what a sacred union is. And to be honest, a lot of it actually really doesn't resonate with me. I think that this is such a complex topic, and relationships being Libra season right now, I think are of utmost focus. And yeah, there's a lot that I want to share in this live. And I'm just gonna let it come as it wants to come. What feels most true to start with? I think that sacred unions, it can be a really slippery slope. Just like social media, right? It can be a really slippery slope. Just because we see something put out there doesn't necessarily mean it's true. Now, the same with teachings on sacred unions. The same with teachings on anything. And I'm an advocate for the most experience we're ever going to have of truth is something that we resonate with in our own body. So I want to say first, I think that a lot of the sacred union stuff, it can be a little bit delusional. I'm just going to be blunt. It can be a little delusional. And there can be a loss of a grounded approach to reality. And I think that this is sometimes, I feel a little choked up right now. I feel a little nervous. So I'm going to take a pause. Oh, God. I think I feel nerves because this is a topic that is so close to my heart. And I think a lot of people, right, you could say a core desire that a lot of people may have is to be in love, right, or to find love, or to be in a beautiful relationship, or if you're more in the spiritual community, have a conscious relationship and all of these things. Yet when we don't have a grounded awareness in our embodiment, in our discernment, in our own sacred union within, I think we can fall susceptible to a bit of delusion in the realm of what a sacred union is. And this is something that I think is going to be really important ongoing, and I somewhat feel like a bit of a whistleblower, but especially in the world of polarity, in the world of conscious relating, in the world of tantra, there's a lot of these neo approaches, but a lot of them are not trauma informed, and a lot of them are not somatic based. It's a lot of teachings, it's a lot of head, it's a lot of thought, but sometimes what gets missed is what's going on in the body. So the first myth I want to debunk around sacred unions is that you need to be in a partnership to experience it. And in my full-fleshed experience, that's actually not true. I think that, and I've experienced that, the key to a thriving union and partnership is when you have accessed a level of your own embodiment within your own feminine and masculine within yourself. I truly believe that. I truly believe that sacred union is first and foremost experience within ourselves. 100% across the boards. So this is where, right, the delusion can happen, because it's like, well, I need my partner, I need my divine masculine, I need my divine feminine. But actually that's approaching union from a place of lack. And you can see this, right? You can kind of like siffle it out. And I'm not saying it's wrong to want partnership. I think partnership's beautiful. I love partnership personally when it's right and when it's true. And I've experienced like beautiful sacred union in partnership. I had a 5-year, deeply committed, beautiful relationship of so much learning and so much growth. And then the contract kind of naturally changed and life brought along different events. And I think that to be in union is a beautiful thing. But to think that you can only access sacred union with another, I think is the first myth. Whereas actually, truthfully, if you want to set yourself up for a thriving partnership, if you want to set yourself up, you, I believe, first and foremost, need a base level of contentedness within yourself. And this is where conscious relating, tantra, polarity sometimes is lacking, an element of being trauma informed. Because I think sometimes we can think, right, that, oh, I'm whole and complete within myself. But what is your energy body saying? What is your trauma informing? And a lot of this isn't really talked about in Tantra. A lot of this really isn't talked about in conscious relating or calling in a partner. It's like calling in my masculine, calling in my feminine. Whereas, well, what's your body actually available for? Have you done, deeper investigating with your baseline of how these two poles actually exist within you? And I think of, right, when I'm going to use my 5-year partnership as a template, because that was definitely the most like connected, merged relationship I've been in, the most open and in depth. And when we came into each other's lives, right? And also this is an old template because I've evolved so much since then. But I was whole and complete within myself. I wasn't actually looking for a sacred union. I wasn't looking for a partnership. I set an intention, but I kind of let it go. I wasn't like hungering for it and like writing and posting about it. And like, I was just like trusting it would come. And I was full in myself. I was doing my thing. And then this man comes along and he was also whole in himself and doing his thing. And we, merged. And I think that a lot of the magic of a sacred union is that you don't need each other, but you want each other. You don't need each other, but having each other in your lives opens up new doors, right? So you don't need a partnership to experience sacred union. And that is honestly one of the most liberating things I have personally learned over the years. Since my last partnership was shorter term. It was a shorter term relationship. But I learned so much from being single. Because right, oh god, I feel so rusty. I think it's because I haven't done a live in so long. Bear with me, guys. If you're here, I trust you're here and something good will come through. I love to be articulate, but I guess I've just got to make peace with my inarticulateness right now. I speak from my heart. I think that when we are in a space of being single and not in a partnership, it really heightens the playing field, and gives us an amazing opportunity to witness how do we respond to being in that state. Because I think the quality of our relationships is always going to depend on the quality of our beingness within ourselves. And this is the part where like sovereignty is also a really strong buzzword. But then everyone has their ideas on what sovereignty is. Oh, you're hyper sovereign, or you're under sovereign, or you're codependent, or you're anxious, or you're nervous, and all these things. But I truly believe, and from my experience, sovereignty is the ability to be like, you know what, I'm good because it got me, and I know the standards for how my heart wants to be loved and cared for. So how can I show up for myself? This has honestly been my biggest ongoing learning, and something that I didn't really even think was my learning. Life just kind of helped me get this from having really, deep relationships and connective things, but also having a lot of variation and change in my life. Always coming back to that baseline of a really committed relationship to my own individuality. And this is something that's challenged people in the past. But I truly believe that sacred union is when we're coming together as individuals, right? Not like you complete me, you need to be this, you are the masculine to my feminine, you are the feminine to my masculine, but you're an individual, and I vibe with you, and I see what you're doing, and I fucking love it. Keep being you. I think we could do something great alongside each other, right? And I think that one of the myths of a sacred union is when it becomes super codependent. Well, if you're more, and there's more I want to say to this later, but if you were more this, and if you were more that, and if you were more this, and if you were more that, and honestly, in my eyes, that's not sacred union. That is like karmic relationships, and that's something I experienced in my last relationship. And yeah, more to come. But I believe sacred union is when you have utmost respect for the individual who's sitting across from you, honoring the fact that they choose to do this dance with you, and you choose to do the dance with them. And you're walking as empowered individuals committed to each other's growth and expansion. Not, you're here to fix my wounds, you're here to heal my wounds. I think that's more of like a karmic relationship, which some people need. And this is where trauma isn't so talked about in a lot of like sacred union contexts or polarity work or conscious relationship work. And I truly believe that anything's possible in relationship. I'm a big fan of that. Anything is possible in relationship. I think any people can make something work if there's an equal level of willingness. Also, though, compatibility. And this is a big thing. Because sometimes there could be some delusion in the realm of tantra, love, relating, polarity dynamics, feminine and masculine. There can be some ego. There can be ways of using these teachings and tools to kind of hide from our own trauma. And this is something really important that I think like really needs to be talked about. Because I see it happening, it makes me cringe. And I think it makes me cringe because I have been in an experience of witnessing that and really deeply learning from being in an experience where trauma was, kind of like disguised as like teachings and wisdom. So yes, anything can work with an equal level of willingness and compatibility and awareness of trauma. I think trauma needs a big seat at the table, not to be like hyper focused upon and doomed and gloomed upon, but for each person to have a sovereign, independent awareness of the trauma that they carry in their bodies and the relational trauma that they carry, and a certain level of advocacy and sovereignty over that. Because when that is not present, naturally it leaks into the partnership, right? So sometimes I find that karmic relationships, which can be sacred unions, right, with an equal level of accountability and respect and willingness, is when people have opposite traumas, right? Like one person was really, neglected as a child and the other was smothered. And then the dynamics come together and play out this spiral. Or, there's so many ways it can play out. And when we have an awareness of the trauma that we personally carry, and when the partner has an awareness of the trauma that they carry, it allows us to engage. But sometimes there can be a lack of accountability. And there can be, I believe, something called, this is getting so rich. I think why I keep getting so stifled is because there's like so much in this topic. And I'm trying to find a way to like bring it through most efficiently, but it's taking me a little bit of time. Yeah. I think this is a really key point. Sacred unions and karmic relationships. And this feels really, really potent. And aligned with what was most aligned in my heart to share this live. Thanks, Katie. Karmic relationships and sacred unions. Karmic relationships and sacred unions. I believe the biggest distinguishment here is that we find our way into karmic relationships because we're trying to heal wounds through playing out karma and playing out patterns. Sacred unions is when we enter a relationship. It almost feels like a healthy level of like detachment. Right? And this is like, you can really feel the difference in your body. It's not detached like you don't care, but there's a respect for the individuation of each person and that you're willingly choosing to be there. Whereas a karmic relationship may feel more like a kind of messy, knotty, entangled web, and it's like, how do I navigate this? So let's talk about polarity and debunking some of the myths on polarity, and what I personally, just sharing my, sovereign free will opinion, some things I see that really don't resonate with me. And I think that these terms of masculine and feminine can be really abused when there's not like a trauma-informed nature to them. So the feminine, right? There's a lot of talk that the feminine is so open. The feminine is the open heart. And the open heart and revealing and showing and expressing and allowing and inviting and yes. And sometimes women, if you're identifying as a feminine pole in a relationship, there can almost be a feeling of like, well, if I'm not doing that, does that mean something's wrong with me? Or I can't open, right? And I think that this is where things can start to get a little bit abusive. And we lose touch with these concepts as concepts, and we start to make them mean something really personal. And we're not taking into account trauma. We're not taking into account our own deep intuition. And this is like a big thread, because I think, yes, there's feminine, there's masculine, there's polarity, there's sacred relationship. And I believe that beyond all of that and integrating and holding all of that and encapsulating all of that is our psyche, is our soul. Beyond like feminine, masculine, but like our soul's knowing and intuition. And with the feminine being open, right? Like this is a gift. And I think that a myth that I personally want to debunk is look a little deeper, woman or men. But if you are not opening, can you trust that maybe there's actually a divine intelligence in that? And I think I want to, it feels really vulnerable, but it feels integrated now. I think I want to share, to give like perspective, my own experience. So actually, something about me, I tend to, when I'm a yes to engaging in relationship with someone, I tend to open really deeply. And in the past, really fast. And when I'm a yes, I'm just so yes. I'm all in. And I open myself so wide. And I actually really take in. And I'm actually quite like, I don't want to say choosy, that sounds so exclusive, but like, I am really happy being on my own. So it takes a lot for me to say yes to partnership. And not a lot, but it's got to really align. And I love being in my feminine openness. And I can open really fast and really deep. And I've also come to a point, though, that I trust when that shifts and changes. And a big myth I want to debunk is that, the feminine closing down or not being open is not always, like a fear tactic. Sometimes it's a survival tactic. And the thing is, with the feminine, I really love seeing the feminine as like the oracle. And my friend Jess said this the other day. She's like, the feminine's the oracle. And I was like, oh, yes. And I've seen Lauren Kren speak about this a little bit. And the opening of a woman is here to be served, right? It's like in service to the opening. But if your opening as a woman is being like kind of attacked or challenged, I think this is where we get into the dangerous territory of relating dynamics. It's like, well, if you were more in your heart, and I had this experience in my past relationship, I was very open from the get-go, and I was a yes. I was, yes, all in. And I had some learning to do in that relationship, because in time, my deeper feminine body started speaking to me. And I was just noticing patterns and seeing things. And I didn't feel aligned to be so open anymore. I noticed a shift happening, and I really had to contemplate it myself, because I'm someone who's super eager to learn and grow. I'm like, okay, yeah, what is this? What is this? But it was in the head, whereas the intuition and the intelligence of my body was saying, no, we do not want to take this in. This is not something that's serving. We do not want to take this in. And then I had that challenge of like, well, if only you opened more. Your, closing down is closing this relationship. You need to come back to your heart, or else this relationship's over. Like, you're closing down, you're afraid, you need to open more. And it was just like, I remember being in my feminine and hearing that, it was just like more and more affirmation of like, this is not a safe space. This is not a safe space. And I think this is where the tools and methodologies of Tantra and Polarity and conscious relating can get out of hand, because they can be used to subtly mask our traumas that are often really unconscious. So let's say you have unconscious trauma and like mother wounds. It can be really easy to use these teachings and methodologies, if you're feeling rejected from the feminine, to say, you need to do this, rather than, how can I bring it back to myself? How can I bring it back to myself? What is it for me to learn here? So that's a distinguishment. I don't think sacred unions are about playing out endless amounts of karma together and challenging each other, if you need to be more this, or you need to be more that, or you're this, or you're that. I think sacred unions are when we are taking sovereign ownership for what we're bringing to the table, and we have accountability in how we speak. Not if you did more of this, or if you were more masculine, or if you led more. I think that's still playing out, the trauma wounds. Whereas a sacred union is, you're both choosing to be here. You're choosing to be here to expand alongside each other, but not to pull each other's weight and do each other's work. And I think that is a big thing. And I honestly, I'm getting a little jittery, because a lot of me sharing this is me owning my story. And I think this is a valid part, because I'm never going to be someone who wants to do disembodied teachings. I'm not here to tell you about concepts. I'm not here to tell you pretty quotes about what a relationship means. I'm not here to tell you pretty quotes about how to be in your feminine. I'm here to show you what's real from my own experience. And a lot of what I've experienced teaches me what I get to teach. And a lot of it's not easy. So I notice that as I'm like expressing this, I almost feel like somewhat a sense of like alchemy within my own process, letting it be seen. And yeah. So this feels like a milestone of a lot more sharing that will come around what is it actually to be in a healthy relationship, where you feel deep respect for yourself and you also feel deeply respected by your lover. And luckily I do know what that feels like. I have had a really beautiful relationship that it has transitioned and it's like fully clear and all these things, but it did give me in ways a template of understanding what is it to really be respected and what is it to really be honored for who you are. And I think that because I had that template, it helps me see now, and also first and foremost actually beyond that, because I know what it's like now to deeply respect and care for myself, I can feel when that's apparent in a dynamic or not. And I think that's why sacred union, right? It's not like it's limited to you having a partner. Sacred union isn't limited to you like calling in your beloved masculine or calling in your beloved feminine. I'm not gonna lie, I think a lot of that's bullshit. I think a lot of it's bullshit because it's like running away from the love that is already here right now. From the love that already is right here, right now. And here's my template, right, for sacred union. And this is a big part of why I left my last relationship is, well, 1, it just was no longer true. 2, it didn't feel safe anymore. And 3, there was some disrespect and crossing of boundaries. And I just saw that it just really actually wasn't compatible on a soul level. So I had to face my own shit of being like, this is me running away. This is me running away, or having things told to me like, you're afraid, Whereas actually I was doing the deepest honoring of my own feminine heart to leave. And that's another thing I think about sacred unions, is that being in a sacred union does not mean you're indebted to doing work. I really don't believe that. And that's something that's continued to become more and more clear to me. I don't believe that sacred unions have to be full of like doing the work and trauma and healing. I think that's a karmic relationship, and we can choose to do that dance or not. And I think, you know, we open ourselves up to not only really journeying into our own karma, but the other person's karma. And that's what I started to see. I was like, oh, I actually have really opened super deeply here, but I do not like what it's doing to my body. I do not like what it's doing to my heart. I do not like how this is landing in my system. With full respect and honoring of the individuals involved, but like, I have a conscious choice to remove myself. And that's the thing, like, choosing to not do the work with someone doesn't mean that you're afraid of love. And I think this is a really important message, because I have a lot of clients like this. I've talked to a lot of friends about this. Sometimes you can navigate, right? If there's an equal devotion to love and it's someone you want to do the work with. But if you're choosing to step out of a dynamic because it doesn't feel healthy, all the power to you. All the power to you. Maybe it's not aligned. Maybe it's not compatible. Choosing to leave relationships does not mean that you're not capable to do the work. And, you know, luckily I've had past experiences where I saw that. You know, in my 5-year partnership, things came up for sure. But it was like, I want to do the work with him. Yes. I want to do it with you. So now I know what it's like when it's a no. It's like, actually, no, I do not want to do that with you, because that's not true. And doesn't mean I'm scared. Doesn't mean I'm afraid of love. But I have sovereign choice. And I respect my path and honor my path and honor my voice, just like I would honor yours. So sacred union does not mean you have to stick in it till the death. I think sacred union's also a bit of a myth to debunk here, is that they don't have to be the relationship that lasts your forever, right? I think we can have experiences of sacred unions over our lifetime. So my relationship, my 5-year really deep partnership, that was a sacred union. And it was a chapter of my life, a really beautiful one that I still derive fruits from, and a chapter that's passed. And I know there'll be more union or unions in my future. And sacred unions don't mean it's your one and only person that you have to make it last forever with. But I think this is really like a core. I didn't see this coming for this live, but it's like distinguishing karmic relationships from sacred union. Okay. Now we talked a bit about the feminine aspects of things. So open heart. Yes, open heart. But also, here's a myth to debunk. The feminine, whoever the feminine here is listening, you don't owe anyone your open heart. Okay? This is a big thing that I learned viscerally and through a lot of challenge. Whew. And honestly, it kind of makes me a little righteously angry. Because I believe the gift of the feminine is her giving. And right, giving comes from a place of free flow and abundance. It's an overflow. It's an honoring. It's a truth. It's not owed. The feminine does not owe her love. The feminine does not owe her opening. Her opening is served, and she bees it, right? Just like the trees don't owe us life. The ocean doesn't owe us her purification. A child doesn't owe us their beauty. Like that fine. And I think that something to look out for in sacred unions and in relationships is like, if you're being told you need to be more open, or that, like, something I had actually found out in the aftermath, which really didn't feel good in my system, but it's beautiful learning and teaching and intelligence to carry through, is like, she was afraid to love. She was afraid to love. Wow, I'm getting so juicy and like vulnerable with you guys. It's actually not what I planned. But I had that, and it was cool to hear that a bit objectively and detachedly. It's like, am I afraid to love? And actually looking at the truth of my nature and being like, actually, no, that's not true. But I'm free to love where I want to and where I don't want to. And if I feel that my heart's not being honored, and if I feel like I'm seeing things that don't feel good to take into my system, I do not owe you my opening. So here is where the feminine can debunk some myths. The feminine, you don't have to give your openness to be loved. And that was a big fucking breakthrough for me. It's like, wow, I don't have to give in order to be loved. And that's like karmic relationship stuff, right? I had to learn that through some shit that I really didn't, and I'm older now, right? And I'm embodied and I'm sovereign and I care for myself. So I was able to see it and be like, wow, I feel like I have to give to receive here. I can't just be me. Like, I've got to give more. And I got to owe my love to this person. I got to owe it. I got to show it. I got to owe it. I got to owe it. I got to owe it. And it was like, actually, you know what? I don't have to give in order to receive love. I don't have to give in order to be loved. So the feminine, you don't have to give. You don't have to overly nurture. You don't owe anyone your open heart. So if you're seeing polarity things around like, well, you just need to be more open and you just need to like be revealing and like crack your heart open. That might not be true. If your deep psyche is saying, this is not a person I want to do that with, this is not a safe space to do that, regardless of what the whole town thinks, your body will know. And that's the thing I'm an advocate for. And I've done so much work with embodiment now. I'm like fucking like GPS. I'm like, yes, no, yes, no. And I trust my body. And that's also really the depth of feminine embodiment, is trusting your deep feminine psyche, not the head. And also not sublimating your own discernment into the hands of the masculine. And this is something I had to learn too, because I was like, oh yeah, everyone talks about letting the masculine lead. Let me really explore this. And again, I think that's also a big myth to debunk. Because beyond, being open to being led, I personally love being led. So many of the best things in my life happened because I let myself be led. Like in my first partnership, I established my whole business because he believed in me. And he kind of led me, but I was also really stepping up to the plate. So I think being led is a beautiful thing, but being led against our own deep psyche knowing, I think, is dangerous territory. So again, it's like the paradox. And I think that's something that's not spoken of enough in polarity work, because it's not trauma informed. And yes, open, but trust it. Your magic, your heart, you don't owe it to anybody. You don't have to open in order to prove you're feminine. Because the sacred union's within. Ideally, your own man is holding you. And then you're genuinely checking in. Yeah, okay, I can gift my opening. But is this space available, safe, aligned, and compatible for me? And what I started to learn in my last relationship is that it wasn't. And that's okay, But I got a lot of karmic learnings out of it. And actually in choosing to leave it, because I had to face my own things of not doing the work, but realizing actually sometimes choosing no and choosing yourself is doing the work in a whole different kind of way. And I think that that's something, that's not really spoken about. And sacred unions, I think, are much more healthy than what I see a lot of things in the mainstream media talking about. Maybe not mainstream, but neo-mainstream. So let's talk about some of the masculine myth debunking. There's definitely something around leading. So men watching this, sacred union myth busting. Wow, feel that? It's like nervous jitters. This is so healing for me. I'm just gonna say that. This is like so healing for me to speak out and start sharing my story. Because I've actually felt really reluctant and hesitant, because naturally I just kind of want to be balanced and graceful. But I also know that speaking to these things is really, really powerful. And I feel like a lot of energy in my system right now. And just owning my story. I'm allowed to own my story. I'm allowed to own my story. Oh, okay. The masculine. Well, yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to this like leadership thing. It's like the man leads, let the man lead. And, you know, I heard this a lot in my last relationship, like, you need to let me lead, you need to trust me to lead more, you're too sovereign. And I was like, actually, I'm really not. I'm balanced within myself. And I want you to be balanced within yourself. And then I want us to, like, meet each other from a balanced state and actually see what's compatible. And I think that this is something that's a big myth around the masculine, is like, woman, you need to let your masculine lead. You need to let your masculine lead. And you need to sit the fuck back and let him lead. I think that, yes, there's an element of that, and it can be so satisfying and so pleasurable. But also, if a woman, right, has a flimsy inner masculine, it's not going to go so well for the relationship. You can't sublimate your power onto another. And I think that polarity is important, because to have a juicy, charged relationship, ideally you are able to, you know, tap into masculine and feminine, and someone's holding either pole. But I think a myth is that it's, like, totally separate. Like, okay, the man is identifying as masculine, and the female is identifying as the feminine. I actually think it's more about, in a sacred union, you both have a lot of access to both, and then you can free play. Hey, I'm really feeling my masculine right now. Hey, I'm really feeling my feminine, you know? And play with it, but not get too stuck. And yeah, for the masculine in leadership, sometimes this can, like, unconsciously turn into control mechanisms. And I think, you know, in my eyes, this is where we can still kind of see patriarchal things, like, slip into these, like, neo-tantric principles, is when it's all about, you know, the man leading and the feminine just, like, dropping back and surrendering. And don't get me wrong, I do love that, and I think it's beautiful. And I honestly, I'm kind of traditional in that way. Like, I fluctuate a lot. I definitely fluctuate in my desires, and I'm quite eclectic and versatile in my desires, which can be a little hard for people to keep up with. I do, though, see the beauty in that and love the beauty in that. I love being in my feminine. And I truly believe an element of the masculine, right, bringing it back to ourselves, because we don't need to be in a relationship to experience sacred union. Sacred union is available for you in this moment, right here, right now. Like, I have felt the deepest sacred union, like, these last, like, 3 months, since my inner man stood up for me and chose myself and, like, said, hey, actually, we're gonna leave this relationship, because this is not true. And this is getting, like, really weird, and I actually don't want to choose to keep opening and doing the work with this person. No, that actually does not feel good in my feminine body. And my own inner man was like, okay. And when I made that choice, I experienced such new depths of, like, love and expansion within myself and within life and my other relationships. And there was something really juicy with that. Yeah, I believe the masculine is here to serve the feminine opening. And this isn't about, you know, your man serving your woman. It's not that contained. It's not about the physical aspect of things. It's not about what's physically happening. It's about what's spiritually and energetically being transmitted. And this is where I think there's some myth, because it's like, well, I'm doing all the feminine things, or I'm doing the masculine things, but it's like, well, how are you being? Beyond what you're doing and thinking and saying, what is your energy communicating? What is your energy communicating? And I believe that the masculine energy, beyond gender, is here to serve the feminine opening. And see the feminine as the oracle, as the intuitive guide, as this, like, source of wisdom. Like, nature births forth so much beauty and so much wisdom. And the masculine gets to serve that. And I think controlling masculine dynamics can come in when it's like, well, hey, feminine, you need to do it this way. Or you need to be more that. Or that's what opening looks like. Or you need to do more that. And in my eyes, that's, like, karmic and trauma. It's not actually honoring the natural organic flow of things, which is the feminine as the oracle, the feminine as the gatekeeper, the feminine as the birther, the feminine as the intuitive. And I believe the masculine leads because it's informed by the feminine. And then the feminine can invite the masculine into leadership. But when the masculine energy, man or woman, starts giving correction of like, you need to be more open, you need to be this, that's what the feminine looks like, then I think it's dangerous territory. And I've experienced it's dangerous territory. Not dangerous, kind of dangerous actually, if you stay in it. But when I started to feel that, I was like, oh, this is not what I was looking for. This is not the kind of dynamic I'm here for. Because I wouldn't even do that to myself. And that's where it all comes back to self. So man or woman, if you're calling in a sacred union, where can you experience more sacredness in the union within yourself? How does your discernment and your penetrative energy and your loving presence support your intuition? Support your heart. Support you expressing your vulnerability and what's true for you. If you have an intuitive thought or you have a feeling inside of you and you automatically start like barging in on that, that's like your own wounded masculine right within you. Or if you're trying to have presence or something and then you're kind of like nitpicking yourself around your actions, that's your wounded feminine within you. And what we carry within is going to attract. So I truly believe like sacred union really starts within. How are you holding yourself? How are you meeting yourself? Because then you will know if different relationships can meet you at that standard in your way of being. I believe sacred union is so much more than we've been told. So much more than calling in your divine masculine or calling in your divine feminine. I think relationships can be highly karmic and they can teach us a lot. I truly believe that sacred union, though, is when we're choosing to walk along a path with another with like autonomy and like desire. It's like, hey, I respect your individuality and you respect mine, beautiful, and I love you and I want you and let's do this and let's make some magic together. Rather than, you need more of that, you need to be more of that. And control, you know? And listening to your body, right? I think beyond, this is a really big one and a really important one. Because for me, embodiment's been like a huge piece of my life for the last 8 years, and I've done a lot of work with like somatic experiencing and trauma healing with somatics and embodiment, really listening to the instrument of my body and what she's telling me. And I think that, you know, that's something we need to trust, is what our body tells us. And there's a difference, right, between like maybe intuition and trauma. A trauma response feels like you have no control over it, right? It's kind of like you black out and you disassociate and you're responding. Whereas I believe a somatic response is like, it's an inner knowing. It's like a stillness and it's an anchor. And there were times, right, in my last, which kind of, because I believe that to be in sacred union, you have total respect for each other's experience. You don't challenge each other's experience. You hear each other's experience. And I remember there were times where, and again, all this is amazing because it helped me learn more about myself and trusting myself. I definitely had some learning to do around, you know, really trusting myself and not doubting myself. And that's, I'm really grateful for my last relationship because I came out of it with so much more self-trust. And I got to see places where I was, even going into the relationship, I was in a really vulnerable position. I had just like let go of my last lover and I was like cracked open to the world. And then I was like in this new relationship. I mean, 1.5 years had gone by, but there was like a really pivotal moment, a pivotal conversation that literally happened like 30 minutes before meeting the man who I started dating. And I was so vulnerable. I was so cracked open. And I can see now, I was like, wow, that's actually so interesting how it was so divinely orchestrated. Because what the conversation I was having and I was letting go was a lot around like trusting in my own worth and trusting in my own volition and trusting in my own masculine. And I had this like conversation and I told my former partner, who things had already cleared with, but I was like, I actually just need no communication because I got to go on this journey. And then 30 minutes later I meet the last partner, and it was just so interesting. I thought it was so divinely timed, and it was, but in hindsight I'm like, I had some lessons to still integrate around really trusting myself and having conviction in like my heart's knowing and in my body and in my intuition. And I think that this is important, man or woman. 1, how much do you respect and trust your own intuition? And 2, do you, can you have discernment in your life And only let people close to you who also trust and respect your intuition and communication. I believe life is way too short and our energy is way too precious to be surrounding ourselves with people who don't, respect your truth and respect your authentic, embodied experience. I only want to be surrounded by people who respect themselves enough to say, this is what I'm feeling. And I always want to endeavor to be a person who honors and respects their experience. And I started to see that it was not a sacred union in my last relationship, and learn more about what sacred unions are when I would, express something from my body. Like, my body is really telling me that I am feeling this and this is what's true. And then it was like directly challenged. Like, no, you're just this. You're just afraid. You're just afraid to open your heart. And I was like, whoa, this is like really dangerous territory. I just really like had my hands on my body. I was expressing what I was experiencing in my body, and it was just like totally invalidated. And I think that this is where, right, the fine line between doing feminine, masculine work can sometimes be hiding like trauma. This is a thick topic. Ooh. And that's why I believe that the more we are really committing to showing up as our most balanced, true selves, the more we are going to find ourselves in beautiful spaces, beautiful places with beautiful relations, in our friendships, in our partnership, in our co-creatorships, in our collaborations, in our clients. We have to first really make sure that we're showing up for ourselves. And there's nothing wrong with karmic relationships. You'll learn a hell of a lot. And I think there's a distinguishment here, sacred unions. And I honestly don't even really love that term so much. I think it's a little bit like neo-spiritual. Loving partnership. Or maybe like soulmate relationship, where you honor each other's souls and you're choosing to be mates on the journey of life. You don't need things from each other. You don't need the other to like heal your trauma. You don't need the other to be more open or more solid for you, because you're doing that yourself. But then you choose to be in love together. And yeah, challenges come up, of course. But how are they navigated with a level of like sovereignty and accountability and embodiment? So, seeing each other as unique, sovereign, and whole individuals. And I'm a big advocate for that. I'm a big advocate for that in all my relationships. And I think that's one of the factors that made my 5-year partnership so beautiful, was that we really did that. It was like, beyond anything, we were just like mates, choosing to walk along the path together and support each other's journeys. And then contracts change. I do believe that contracts change. I believe relationships change, and I think we can outgrow certain situations and grow in different directions. Yeah, it's a big topic. I definitely feel excited by this, and I think that I'm going to be sharing a lot more around this in the time to come, but this kind of feels like my coming out, because I have learned so much in the last 3 months, honestly in the last year, things I didn't see coming. And also, going through my own growing up, I feel so much more mature. Not in just like the graceful ways though of maturity with age and time and experiences, but maturity through some fucking grit and through some confusion and through some shit. I'm like, is this actually happening? Is this actually happening? For real? Am I actually being invalidated like that? Am I actually showing up and choosing this still? Where do I need to show up more for me? And I'm learning now all of these experiences have happened because I feel like there's a lot I can teach about these things, and we'll learn more about in time. But sometimes we have to learn what something is by seeing what it isn't. And as much as it's nice to have disembodied teachings of like, this is what this is, and honestly that's probably my biggest thing with this live, is moving away from like mental and intellectual concepts of love, polarity, relating. Oh, well, this is more this, and if that wasn't this, it's because that was that. It's like, it's honestly approaching like the mystery from such a place of intellect, and it just doesn't fit. And these things have to be experienced, and I've gone through a lot of growing up in this last year. And, I do open my heart. I have experiences of opening my heart really fast and letting people in really deep. And I love that about me. And I will continue to do that as it's true. But now I've developed so much more discernment around like, I actually don't owe anyone my openness. And I don't have to give of my essence in order to be loved for who I am. None of us do. And I had to learn that through some challenges. And I'm grateful for them. Because it's made me so much wiser. And it's made me so much wiser about being my own, guide. And I think this is where it all comes back, is like, can you be your own guide? Not what that polarity teacher is telling you, or what that relationship coach is telling you. Only you know, and choose it. Like, we all have sovereign free will choice. And not everything is going to serve you. Just being blunt. A lot of people, and I believe this too, like, relationships require willingness. But also, that doesn't mean you have to be willing in a situation where it does not feel healthy for you. You don't have to force yourself to do the work if it doesn't feel healthy. And if it doesn't feel honoring. And if you feel like it's not a respectful connection, or just not aligned. And that's been a big learning for me, getting over my own ego. Of like, no, I've got to make it work and see it through and push and do the work. It's like, actually, sometimes doing the work is saying no. Saying, actually, that's not my work, that's yours. Like, actually, that's not the kind of work I'm here to do. And it's not my partner. And there's deep wisdom in that. And not making it mean anything about yourself. Just trusting the path. Was there any last remarks? Also, I feel like I have like a bit of an Eliza Thornberry look going on here. Did any of you watch that? The Thornberries? Not doing the work means you're scared. Not true. Myth busted. Sometimes you're just not here to do the work with certain people. Body over the head in concepts. Honestly, that's probably like a big resounding point of this live as well. Trust your body. Don't sublimate your power to these concepts. Don't sublimate your power to the teachings. Don't sublimate your power to what that person's saying. Trust your body. Trust your body, trust your body, trust your body. Your body will not lie. Especially if you continue to get the message. And that's what happened for me. I opened so deep and so fast. And then after, like, because you're still also getting to know someone in the first few months. And I'm used to, like, longer term relationships. And I could even start to see after, like, 2 months, I was like, something's really not feeling right in my body. This really does not feel true. I'm like, my nervous system is, like, freaking out here. And I know that's not my own trauma. And then I had to trust my body over my head. And when I trusted my body and made choices, things started to reveal. And I was like, oh, that was happening. And I didn't know that was happening. And wow, look at that. That was revealed. And wow, I heard that from that person. Damn, okay, that's interesting. Good. Trust the body. And also, like, notice in the aftermath, right? So I believe that sacred unions are not supposed to be, like, highly uncomfortable. I think that in a healthy partnership, you feel good. You feel good, and you feel loved, and you feel loving. Maybe not all the time. We're humans. We have cycles. But there's a sense of, like, genuine well-being and relaxation and comfort. And trusting that. And it doesn't have to be a big struggle. I'm so grateful that we are coming more online with, like, trauma and healing in this age. And I think that it's a fine line, too, between, like, I see a lot of people who are kind of addicted to trauma and addicted to shadow. And it's like, it's got to be hard. And oh my God, my secret union, it's so hard. This is our new struggle, and this is our new trauma, and this is our new trauma, and and they're not that, and they're not that. I'm like, something's not right here. Yeah. Yeah, I think it all comes back to respecting each other as an individual. And my commitment to myself, my friendships. Hello, Pluto Bliss. Thank you, Rusty April. Love hearing that you love my rawness. Thank you. I'm, like, shaking. I'm like, New timelines of Kelly coming out. Owning my story. Because it's not just my story, it's our story. And I know I'm not the only one who's experienced this. Relationships that, like, I got to go through a lot of my own growing up. And a lot of my own maturing. It's so interesting, actually, too. Because, like, the very openness that I brought to the dynamic was then all at the end kind of like used against me. Not in a victim way. I'm really aware of like, that's also something I've learned in the last 6 months of like victim, hero, villain, perpetrator. And I'm aware of that. So I'm not wanting to victimize myself here. But seeing, just in conversation, in context, like the very openness I brought was then kind of like, I felt used against me. Like, you need to be more open. You're scared and you're closing your heart. And I'm like, actually, no, I just don't want this anymore. It's just not true for me anymore. And I've seen some stuff and I don't like it. And that's not what I'm here for. And all the love on your journey, but no. You know, and I think that unhealthy sacred unions is when your destinies become so merged. And then I'm going to answer your question, Tiffany, and I'll close with that. But this is a note that I really wanted to make a point of. And it's so fucking cool because this is also a really raw, vulnerable share. Like, I'm letting you guys directly into my process, which for me is like incredibly enlivening, but also like kind of scary. But I'm here for that, you know. I got all this Scorpio energy in my 10th house, which is like using the depth of my own experience. Expressing the depths of my own experience and sharing them in a public way for others to learn from, because I think I'm here to share, and in whatever way that best has impact. I'm not attached, but feels like it wants to be shared. I learned a lot around how I was like a big karmic clearing that happened for me, and being in this last relationship, but also choosing to end it, was knowing that I am in full ownership of my destiny, and God is in full ownership of my destiny, and no one else has like control over my destiny. And I think that this is where sacred unions can be a little bit myth busted. Like, let's do some myth busting. Is like, we were meant to be together. We are here to do important things on the planet. We are meant to be. Our destinies are merged. And I think that can be really like slippery territory to fall into. I think we can choose to do amazing work alongside each other, right? And like, I think of, again, former partnership. I used it as a reference point because honestly it was a beautiful relationship. Was it all perfect? No. Was it supposed to end when it did? Yes. Am I grateful for that? Yes. And I learned so much about healthy relationship dynamics. We created beautiful things in the world. We made businesses, we did these things, but it wasn't like our destinies were merged. And I think that it can be kind of naive and a little deceptive and really untrue to tie our destinies with another person. Because I do believe at the end of the day, we are all like soul extensions of source. Like, we are the one. We are our one. And yes, can we have beautiful, fulfilling, long-term relationships and give of ourselves and share in that? Yes, of course. I love that. I love seeing people in love and doing the work and making beautiful things in the world. But at the end of the day, it's you. It's you and God. And if destinies start getting merged, or there's talk around the merging of destinies, for me, that's now like what I start to see like a bit of a red flag. When there's an imposing of destinies and things like that. Yeah, I was getting a little caught up in the comments. And, you know, it's interesting because I had to come to terms with but like a deeper trust in my own path, a deeper trust in my own conviction, a deeper trust in my own ability to thrive in this world as a being, as a soul, as an expression in my purpose, and seeing where I was unconsciously still looking to the masculine, some external masculine, to help me come out into the world. You know, like, I can't do it without them. I'm not good enough. And then actually got to hear that kind of languaging from a partner, but then also at the same time go through a process of being like, well, that's so not true. I'm not, you know. And I think that when we're tying our destinies to another person, man or woman, it's to me, that's not like sacred union territory to be in. I think that's like really codependent territory. Can we choose to co-create? Of course. So many beautiful people have co-created amazing things in this world, But I think there's a difference between choosing to co-create and tying your destinies. You know, I had things said to me, and it's interesting. It's in the last 3 months, I've been single and celibate, and it's been amazing. And I have, you know, noticed these like things, and I'm not taking the bait anymore. Oh, I could really help you with your thing. I could really help you with your business. I could really help you with that. I see how and like, it's beautiful. I'm all for receiving support, but feeling sometimes a deeper energetics beneath that. And that was kind of a thing that I saw as well in my last partnership. How I was actually calling that in, because it was a part of me that I still had to heal, right? So if that's me taking ownership, I was calling that in unconsciously, like a man to show me the way, because I didn't believe I could do it, because I didn't believe I was enough. You know, I didn't believe in my own, I still didn't fully believe in my own worthiness and my own abilities. So it was like, I'm here to help you come out into the world, or things I had said, or like, I'm here to like show you to the world. I'm here to be a part of you coming out. And I was like, yeah, save me. You know, my own like damsel thing was still running until I caught her and was like, oh no, honey, that's not the way you want to be led, but also that's not true. And now when I hear things, I'm like, oh, interesting. These patterns that play out, and how we can, you know, use them all to come back to our heart. And of course we can receive help. Of course we can receive support. This isn't about being hyper masculine. This isn't about being hyper sovereign. But it is about, I believe, being in an autonomous connection, in an autonomous communication with your own soul. And some things will feel truly good and right, and some things won't. Can you trust that? All right, so Tiffany, you said, thank you for sharing. How do you know whether it's your body intuition communicating with you or you're thinking the thought? Body intuition. I'd honestly get into a space where you're in no mind. You know, and something I would do, because I would actively ask myself this, because I'm in the inquiry now of doing the work. I'm like, well, is this just my thought and trauma, or is this actually real? And I would take it to embodiment. Or I would take space and silence and time away. And I'd listen to what communication came through when I wasn't involved in the thought. Out in nature. Even asking. You know, I do believe, not in like a super bypassy way, I think we can ask for insights from our guides, from our guardians, from our angels. And I would sometimes do that and be like, please show me what I need to hear. And it's so crazy thinking about like the things I would hear and the affirmations and reflections of what my intuition was telling me. And when I would, here's another thing too, how to distinguish the difference. Try both out and notice how you feel. And that was a really big revealing thing for me, because I was sometimes in a place where I wasn't taking action and I was just trying to figure it out. But then I would communicate something and express and then move forward. And when I made the choice that really felt best in my heart, I noticed a lot of like doors open for me. So I made the choice that I thought was really hard. And then really good things started happening. Like I was getting a lot of support. New opportunities were coming my way. My energy was freeing up. I started feeling healthier. And I think that's a great sign. Again, not victim-y stuff, but just like energy speaks for itself. So notice, like maybe try out both things. If there's something you're thinking about, try both directions. And notice, where does your energy expand more? Where does your energy then get freed up? And I think that can reveal a lot. For me, that revealed a lot. In all the hard choices I've had to make in my life, I've had to make many hard choices. I think we all have. And for me, a big indicator, not that it's only about feeling good, is I can tell that when I make a correct choice for my soul, I start to feel more healthy, more vibrant, more aligned, more connected, more clear. Yes, there's periods of grief. Yes, there's periods of healing. But I believe that we can discern, because when we make a choice, notice the repercussion of that. And I notice when I choose the opposite of my intuition, or what I was told is what I should do, my whole body locked down. And I'm in a communication now with my body where I know when it does that, it's trying to tell me something. So I think having an embodiment practice is crucial, because you can't know what your body's trying to communicate with you if you don't have an active way of tapping into like a non-linear way of hearing your body, moving your body in non-linear ways, like expressing, feeling, emoting, not just running or yoga, but like really beginning to speak the language of your body. And she'll show you. He'll show you. Katie said, hearing it's your trauma, even from yourself, disconnects you from your inner wisdom. What you said about allowing each other's experience is so vital. What's true for you in this moment? Is it? Yeah. And I think that's the thing, a sacred union, you honor what's true for each other. You're not trying to, right? And honestly, a lot of it's really unconscious. It's an unconscious, and this is what I started to realize, and then I had so much compassion come through in the aftermath. I was like, oh, this is actually an unconscious grab for love. I don't want that to be your experience, because then we're not in connection. So I'm going to invalidate your experience so that maybe you'll think I'm right and we'll come back into connection. Whereas actually, I think what true love does, and I experience this in relationships in my life, friendships in my life, chosen family in my life, is we honor each other's truth without trying to change it to suit our own needs. And I think that's a big difference between a karmic relationship and a sacred union. You honor each other's truth because you honor the human standing before you. You honor their heart, regardless of what it means for you, or if you're getting that love in return. And again, these concepts can be really intellectualized, and they can be spoken and said, yet to actually embody them is a different story. And to actually embody that, not just say it, I love you for who you are, regardless of what your truth is, but then to actually embody it and face the trauma that may come up if you're facing rejection, right? And that's where we got to work with our trauma. And sometimes I think that being in relationships with people who have almost kind of a similar trauma story is really helpful. And sometimes it can be a little bit out of our depths if we are in relationships with people who have extensive trauma. Yeah. Was I tortured with words as a child? Mark, where did that question come from? No, I was not tortured with words as a child. There was definitely some really discomforting elements of my childhood. I don't feel this is alive to go into it. I am quite open about it and have expressed other things in the past. Definitely, facing somewhat of an abusive environment as a child, for sure, emotionally, mentally, energetically. And that really catalyzed me on the journey of doing a lot of trauma work and healing. And it's interesting too. I think all of these things connect and relate, but what feels true to share? To be honest, I don't really feel open to answering that question. Think about the energy of it doesn't feel good to me. I notice my system's like, no, I don't want to open to that. So I'm not going to open to that. But I have gotten to dissolve a lot of, I think our childhood experiences can definitely play into our relational experiences. And they give us opportunities to learn and grow and see what patterns we're still accepting. And I think that, in certain ways that I was, I don't want to say treated, but what I was exposed to as a child kind of set me up to feel like I had to give a lot and be available and give and be available. And I was only worthy of love if I was giving and open and like the bright one and the shiny one and the loving one. And some really cool breakthroughs that I've gotten to go through is like, actually, that's not true. I'm here with people. I'm here and I'm deserving and I'm worthy of being with people who love to serve my opening and honor my truth and honor my own multidimensionality as I honor theirs, and really heal a lot of that and be like, oh, I'm not only worthy if I'm giving and open and providing and like loving and like focused on you and and reclaiming a lot of my own energy and seeing what I do want to be here for. And yeah, like I will say there was quite a lot of like violating energy when I was a kid. I felt my boundaries were violated. I felt my space was violated. It was. My boundaries were violated. My space was violated. And I noticed that I had definitely had a pattern, even in friendships, of like, because it was my own stuff to be integrated, but I kind of, I guess, would attract in order to catalyze my own healing. Right? Connections like I just kind of shared, like where my reality was totally invalidated. Of like, hey, this is my truth. And it's like, no, you're just this. No, you're that. No, you're this. You need to that. And I'm like, whoa. I feel like I'm back in my like childhood home. And I can choose differently now. I can choose to not engage with this, and I can choose myself. And that's right, where sometimes in karmic relationships, saying no is saying yes to God, to life, to love on a bigger scheme. So I've gotten to break a lot of those. Not break. I've gotten to integrate on deeper levels a lot of my own childhood things through the field of relationships, for sure. And I think different relationships will bring out different things. But I've definitely learned a lot about, discernment. And knowing that my openness is a gift. And yes, I am 100% here to walk through this world with an open heart. And I have full sovereign free will choice to have discernment. And honestly, it's my responsibility to myself and my own feminine to have discernment around what gets access to that, And some things can get more superficial access. And some things I will let in very deep. But I'm learning that journey. And definitely having the childhood I had set me up to learn a lot about healthy discernment, healthy opening, love, connection, respect, respecting boundaries, respecting free will and sovereignty, and removing ourselves from situations that are not healthy. Physically, emotionally, psychologically, karmically, right? On any level. Doesn't have to just be like, oh, it's not healthy physically, it's abusive physically. There's such a thing as something not being healthy for you psychologically or energetically or spiritually. It's all about just trusting yourself. But this is me, and thank you for being here, for hearing me, and for being a part of this live, and for witnessing my story. And my intention with this is to utilize everything as learning experience, but also teaching, because I know that I'm not the only one. And none of us are the only one. Anything that really moves us deeply, I guarantee you haven't felt it alone. And the thing that's moved you so deeply might just be a place where you have a lot to share. And I do feel there's something to be said for the alchemy that happens when we own our story. With love, with respect, with appreciation, and honesty. And I think that this realm of sacred unions and tantra and polarity in relationships is really important. But also, I think there's a lot of stigmas that can kind of be debunked. And I do believe there's a lot that's not spoken about in these chapters, where it's in these chapters of light, in these topics that can be really disembodied teaching. And I'm a big fan of everyone coming back to their body. So make your biggest commitment a devoted commitment to the wisdom of your own body. Look at your fears, look at your shadows, look at your trauma, look at those things, be with them, move them, and be with people who love and support you in that process. But the days of outsourcing our power to other people, or information, or a guru, or a teacher, or a polarity coach, or a tantric master, done. I honestly don't think that's the way of the future. I think it's about our embodied wisdom and seeing ourselves as whole souls who get to choose to engage in relationship, who get to choose. Okay. This is it. We got a beautiful sunset coming in. I want to show you. Look at that. Wow. Okay. Whew. Getting a little cold out here. Yo! So much love to you all, from my heart to yours. May you, my wish and my prayer is that you all come home to the love that you are in yourself right here, right now. Remembering that everything you seek is actually already within you right here, right now. All of it. And you can be open to receiving all of the goodness, all of the love, all of the beauty, all of the amazing relationships you could ever want. But first, let it come from here. Let it come from the wholeness of your own heart. Let it come from the completeness and the perfection of all that you already are right now. And know that no one and nothing can teach you how to come from your heart. So go on the journey of opening your heart to yourself. And then only surround yourself with people who honor your heart. Okay. Love y'all.